This is Rob Anspach, and welcome to another edition of eHeroes. Today I have Bella LaQuatra, and today we're going to talk about having a go anywhere business. So, if you're listening out there and you want to have more impact in what you do, I think this interview is going to be awesome. So, welcome, Bella, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I really appreciate it. I
Now,
always
now
love to have chats.
we met actually in San Francisco at Steve Sims' Speakeasy. And I just thought that, having you on this podcast would be awesome because you travel all over the world and you take your business with you. And to me, I think that's amazing, with how businesses are evolving.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that, I love brick and mortar. So don't get me wrong, I do love brick and mortar. I started in brick and mortar. But I've also really had a strong hand in the online world. And I think for a specific type of person, a specific type of disposition, and a specific type of industry, staying as lean as possible, kind of spreading that minimalist lifestyle in everything you do, including your work and your enterprise, is quite helpful. And it, creates like a smaller footprint, so to speak. So if you don't have to go big and you can go lean, I think it's a great option.
Now, what happens when you get into countries where, the Wi-Fi is, crappy? I mean, I've been there, and or the phone reception is horrible. And I mean, do you still work, or do you just, kind of wing it and go do something else?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So within the, digital nomad community, there's two types of digital nomads. There is the group that maybe they have just recently left the corporate job and they're really just going into the freelance space and they want to work a little, play a little. And then you go into these expat communities that really have, quite savvy internet entrepreneurs who have been in the expat communities from 3 to 5 years. And those are people who have really kind of settled down, so to speak. So yes, they're traveling, but they have their routine, they have their systems, they have the setup in place that they can do high speed internet, because internet reliability is always a problem. There's always something going to go wrong when you're traveling and you're trying to work at the same time. So you just have to be prepared for that. But as you take and work with these different levels of, some are consultants, some are freelancers, some are actual entrepreneurs with multiple enterprises, multiple businesses. But as you work throughout these different groups, you'll see different styles and different ways that people have kind of adapted to take their business with them.
And what do you do? I mean, what makes you, the go-to person in your niche?
So I am an online expert in establishing your ecosystem and giving you the tools to create a multiple six-figure business. I'm really highly niched in the transformational space. So health and wellness, fitness, yoga, spiritual, personal development, and really especially with women as well. So I'm a niche within a niche within a niche, which is why I think I'm able to do what I do. I'm very highly targeted, and if you put me in any other place, I probably wouldn't make a lot of sense. But this is something I fell into. I've been doing it for almost a decade and I've gotten the hang of it, being in the insides and scaling a couple 7-figure e-com businesses. So once you go that route, I always say you can't take me many places, but put me in the right place and I'll fly.
So what's your favorite place?
So I really enjoy Bali. I think like most digital nomads and like spiritual entrepreneurs, I really enjoy Bali. I also really enjoy Australia. The lifestyle and the culture is definitely conducive to healthy living and spirituality and personal development. So, I'm kind of one in a million there. Whereas if you put,
But right now you're in San Diego.
Yeah, right now I'm in San Diego, so it's all good. Because between Encinitas and La Jolla, where I currently am, everybody, dime a dozen. So
yeah. I like La Jolla. I mean, the first, I think there was 1986. I saw an animation show in La Jolla, and that was my I think my love of animation started there, and
Yeah.
but traveling all over, that just how do you? I mean, I know that coming back from San Francisco when we met, I've gotten delays and delays and delays, and I think I got home 6 hours after I was supposed to, and to me, traveling all over the world like you do, I mean, how do you cope with all the delays?
In some ways, you don't, right? So you definitely have to have a certain adaptability about you. You have
Hmm.
to take into account your disposition. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the digital nomad lifestyle to many people. I think it takes a very, very specific mentality. And you also have to be quite regimented and disciplined in how you're utilizing your time. Travel in general takes a lot of bandwidth out of you, and you have to be able to be flexible because things happen. Passports get lost, bags get lost, there's delays, things never go as planned. So I think when you put that chaotic environment into an entrepreneurial environment, which is already quite chaotic,
Hmm.
you really have to be somebody who might even be masochistic, but enjoys the chaos of constantly being on your toes and enjoys the excitement of it. So for some people, that most definitely would be a few steps back. They wouldn't really enjoy that. I wouldn't recommend it. A lot of people, I tell them not to become entrepreneurs, and I tell them not to go traveling because it's just not a good fit for many people. But if you are somebody who travel's very lean, you don't need a lot of stuff with you, you're very flexible, highly adaptable, you're some weirdo who really likes to thrive in chaos, I think that's when you can actually start getting um substantial rewards and actually enjoy the travel. But you definitely need to have a disposition for it.
And you talk about a niche within a niche within a niche, and I think that also has to align with your core beliefs. And I looked at some of the things that you're doing on Facebook, and what you're posting, and I mean, you have a set of core beliefs that I think is just goes beyond what most people will have. And you want to share that with people?
Yeah, I'd absolutely love to. Thank you for asking me. So, one of my core beliefs or one of my high values is absolutely to travel. But the reason why that is because I really want and always seek to understand different cultures, people, and experiences, right? So, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Mhm.
And similarly, I'm always wanting to see how I can expand my own consciousness and my own set of parameters, right? So I'm constantly learning through growth, and I'm very kinesthetic. So I'm constantly seeking to figure out what's unknown, but then also experiencing it and diving into it. So for me, traveling, experiencing, you know, East Asia, experiencing different parts of the world, that has certainly been an accelerator and an enricher to my own growth. But again, I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. Another one of my core values is just vitality, right? So in my community, a lot of people talk about abundance and what that means. And for some people, yes, absolutely, it's financial literacy and
Mhm.
it's wealth abundance. But just how can you create abundance in other aspects of
Mhm.
life beyond just that wealth or the financial bottom line? So for me, it's where can I go to see really lush, untapped places? I'm traveling to Vanuatu, which is considered one of the last gardens of Eden. It's absolute paradise. Nobody in the States knows where Vanuatu is. It's a tiny island next to Fiji. So I have these opportunities and experiences to really be just enriched and fully immersed in culture and experiences. And it helps me become a better person. Um, and it helps me grow. And as a result, it gives me the ability to serve people at a different level, right? Because as I expand, I can actually hold the bandwidth or the space to help more people in more variety of ways, but also just kind of be a better human at communicating, meeting people where they're at, understanding different points of view. I've been in an orphanage that has a dirt floor, and 3 minutes later I'm in the Ritz Carlton with a client. So I think having that versatility and being able to walk a line and be an observer and be observant in all of your situations and take lessons and and understandings out of all of the experiences that you experience in life, it definitely adds to the table and making you a better person, but also a better entrepreneur at the end of the day.
You know, and you do all this without a website, which to me is phenomenal. Also curious because, you know, we build websites and we try to help people with their authority. And here you are amplifying that authority without a website, which, you know, explain to me how that happened.
So I'm a big believer in like, don't tell people who you are, show people who you are, right?
Mhm.
And so like all of this internet jargon around telling people who you are and saying I am the authority. I know for me personally, when somebody's stomping and screaming and saying pay attention to me, they're usually the least likely to have my attention at any given moment. So when you study influence and preeminence and how people work and how, you know, we actually come together and start creating that and start creating influence and impacting culture, you'll find that a lot of the times the most influential people are actually the people who are saying the least. So for me, that's a huge talking point. I grew up making websites. I learned coding when I was 7 at Carnegie Mellon University. We had this chat, so I was building all kinds of websites out through my teenage years. That was my side hustle when I wasn't going to school and should have been going to school. I was coding and making money. And while I understand the validity of having a website, quite simply, as we evolve and we move towards a more UX, UI friendly model, and definitely with mobile apps and now virtual reality and augmented reality and the way technology is developing and the way the user experience is developing, we're going to see less and less of that. So it's that psychological aspect of I don't need to tell people who I am. People figure out who I am by who I'm associated with and also what my clients are achieving. And then there's the technology aspect of if they can click from an app to get in direct contact with me, if they can book a link to get into direct contact with me, if I can give them that human interaction as quickly as possible and keep them off a stagnant website, then I'm doing my job right.
You know, and social media was supposed to do all that for people, and I think it kind of lost its touch over the last 10 years. You know, and I know that you know, before we started recording, you were talking about a lot of the social networks before Facebook, and I think that's really what, you know, kind of made you transition into other stuff and see the non-validity of websites and using other forms of networking.
Yeah.
But the Facebook right now, I think it's imploding on itself. I think it's trying to control too much of the narrative, and people are going elsewhere.
I agree. And I also think that there's social implications of, you know, utilizing social media. And now it's funny because even in ad jargon, when you're creating ads, when you're trying to sell people, right? It's you sell to people by actually not selling people
Mhm.
nowadays. Like, don't make the ad look like the ad.
Right.
And so how can we bring the human aspect back into our interactions? And I feel that, you know, the more we see not just B2B, but B2C kind of up and running on the internet, it's important to remember that human piece of what we're doing. And I often in my spare time, I'm contemplating the point of singularity and what happens when technology takes over human intelligence and what our role in that and what our roles as, you know, social proprietors or proprietaries, if you want to say. So
Mhm.
as we are, you know, purveying human experiences and interactions and social experiments and interactions and business experiments and interactions, how can we bring some mindfulness into how we're communicating with each other?
You know, I read something, I think it was on your Facebook a while ago, that you know, we are commoditizing and digitizing our human emotions, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not the right way to go. I think we need to be more distant from the technology and just come together as real people.
Yeah, which is why my business has been successful. It's because people actually talk to me. Um, it's, you know, it's the same techniques that we use with our client accounts. It's how can we get people to actually talk to you? How can we make it so that there's that human touch? Even in building ecosystems, everybody wants to talk about funnels, but
Mhm.
our best funnels are not funnels.
Yeah.
I was talking to a client the other day, and her best funnel is actually Women's Circle. That's all organic, word of mouth. And she's able to enroll people into her programs on the spot from having those live in-person interactions. So how can we start thinking about marketing and thinking about, you know, creative marketing and advertising in a way that actually brings back the human connection
Yeah.
and uses, you know, the internet to support you, not to make it a machine that is hurting us and given those social implications.
I always say that you're one funnel away from a mental breakdown. People are just adding funnels and chatbots, and I like chatbots for specific reasons, but I think if they take the human element out of it, then you're losing that trust that you're trying to gain to begin with.
Absolutely.
I
You
think
can't.
they're. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just going to agree. You can't take the people out of your business.
No.
At the end of the day, business is a people thing.
I've seen so many people overcomplicate their funnels or overcomplicate their chatbots, and then they wonder why they're not getting any clients. Well, after and even I go on to these systems where, as they say, well, if you want to interact with a person, and then I find that I'm spending 15 minutes, 20 minutes on this chat back and forth, where if I would just picked up the phone, I could have had the problem solved in 2 minutes.
Right.
We are overcomplicating the human relationship by using digital means that don't need to be there.
Absolutely. They're supposed to be a tool to support, not to get in the way or convolute the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I don't really use websites. I don't do business cards. I'm like, you really don't need this stuff. Like, especially working with women, because especially working with creative women, very feminine women who are very, much in touch with their femininity and their creativity. It's like working with those women, you get them online and they're like, the colors, the logos, the fonts, the sites. I'm like, you really don't need any of that. I promise you just need to start making offers. And they're like, oh, I'm like, there's your funnel. And they're like, that's really my funnel. Yeah, that's really your funnel. Your Woman's Circle and then converting it into an offer. That's your funnel. You don't need a ClickFunnels account.
I haven't used a business card in about 10 years now.
Yeah.
Books I consider my business card because people can pick them up and they can read them and learn about me. But for me to take, 100 books with me everywhere I go is not going to work either.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny that we live in, and I also think the internet is such a strange rabbit hole of even to do, like I said, and we were chatting about this, the fact that I somehow ended up in online marketing / brand building in the holistic feminine transformation space. You never grow up thinking that that's what you're going to do for a living, but here we are.
So, I mean, is San Diego where you consider your home, or is somewhere else?
So really, I most love Australia. I spend most of my time in Australasia. But if I'm to pick one place in the United States, San Diego has it. It's a great place. It's a great spot.
Yeah, it's a nice place. I like it. I mean, I always go to Old Town. I just think that I know it's a touristy place, but for me, it feels quiet. It feels it just feels like the place to be.
The best thing about San Diego is that you get a really interesting cultural intersect. So you do have a lot of that beautiful historic landmark of housing and architecture, and you have the landscape and the seascape, and so you get a lot of culture here while still being connected and plugged into everything that Americans love. So nice restaurants, nice food choices, technology, people in different industries. So
let's talk about culture, because what we do here in America is a little different than Australia or any of the other places you've been to. So how do you overcome that kind of a culture shock, where we believe one thing, they believe another, you're teaching one thing, and they're trying to come together and piece it all together?
Being in the personal development space, my biggest personal development has been through exploring other cultures and through building a business. I always say the most spiritual thing you can do for yourself is try to be an entrepreneur, because all the things you have to look at and work on come up. And traveling is the other one. You learn so much about yourself, and you learn so much about other people, and you learn how you have to navigate in between those nuances of culture. I will tell you, I had the biggest culture shock actually coming back to the States after being abroad for 2 years. So I went from being in Tuscany, Italy, in the heart of wine country, dropped into Venice Beach, right on the beach, and being abroad from the States for 2 years, for me personally, the level of homelessness and the level of police presence was absolutely shocking to me. And also the hostility, and the tonality of law, and I'm not in any way saying I'm an anarchist. It's just very different culturally. And somebody else said it. They were like, you go to Canada and everything has smiley faces on it, and all of a sudden you get into the States and the tone totally changes. So I think for me, that being in the States has and is a bit of a culture shock. But everywhere you go, in Australia, and particularly Australia, but New Zealand as well, the high values around those places are really around holistic living. So you have your trading hours from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. You don't work on weekends. The idea that there would be a store that you could walk into in the middle of the night and buy a piece of furniture, i.e. a Walmart or a Target, right? The idea of 24-hour stores would be insane. And that's that's not saying it's a good or bad thing. It just shows how much of our culture is driven by consuming and driven by business. And take it for what it is. I love aspects of it. There are other aspects of it that I could totally put down, but I feel that understanding the nuance of other cultures and appreciating and being an observer and coming to understand instead of trying to force your own culture onto other places, it really teaches you a lot about yourself.
So how do people find you if you don't have a website? Where do they go to learn more about you?
You can find me on my social media. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. Those platforms aren't the way my business functions. So of course we have our email CRM that we use to maintain client relationships. So once you're in my funnel, you will be a part of my world, part of my ecosystem. If you want to share whatever I post, my musings, my travel, I can't even really say like I really post business stuff, because I really don't. A lot of it's my own personal musings and inspiration. So if people are excited or want to explore that, by all means. I don't know why you would want to, but go ahead.
Well, I think it helps people understand the niche within a niche within a niche that you are in. And, those that, want to seek, more information about you, it's you're there. They can just click.
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. You have to be a little bit self-deprecating.
And sometimes we have two different philosophies, and I think sometimes we have to let people know who we are and what we can do, because sometimes there's not enough others out there that are talking about us.
Yeah.
I'm not a big believer in fake it till you make it, but I do want people to know that they should be out there telling people what they do, and it'll expand. The universe always gives you more of what you want, or more of what you tell the world that you want. I mean, so if you're going to be a negative person, that's all you're going to get.
Yeah, you create what you see, and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
And
So I want to thank you for being on here and taking the time. And I think what you do is fascinating. I think all the travel that you're doing and creating a business that not only supports you, but drives your passion. I mean, isn't that what we all hope for anyway?
yeah, I think, being fulfilled and feeling alive in all aspects of your life is something that I'm super passionate about. And I've found my unconventional way to make that so. And that's really my message for others. And likewise, thank you for having me. So I'm always the person who I love to explore people who are not like me and explore places that are not like me. And I was telling somebody, like, I really had no business being in that mastermind because I was one of the youngest and I was one of the only women. And I was definitely the only woo woo in the room. But that's where I find the most excitement and the most growth. So it's been a blast and it's been amazing to connect. And that in and of itself, it's just great to meet great people doing the work and great people who are out there sharing their gifts and their genius.
And for all the listeners, this is what makes Bella an e-hero, because she's an entrepreneur out there who, provides that superpower to others, and is in very, she, just listening to her, it's inspiring. And if she can do it, you guys can go out there and create, a global anywhere business, or a go anywhere business that's globally. And just take some inspiration from Bella. And I want to see you guys on the next video or the next podcast, and we'll see you guys later.